We are live, sir. All right.
Wow.
So first of all, good morning to everybody. Welcome to our Success Weekly podcast show. I've got a very special guest on the line with me today, one of my personal friends and mentors in the martial arts industry. He's on here for a reason because I know him personally, and he's very, very successful and has really had a lot to do with my success. And so I'd like to say a special good morning to Master Dave Kovar from Sacramento, California. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Thank you so much for taking out the time to do this. I know it's very early for you right now in about 3 hours difference. And I know you're an early morning guy and you've got a lot of things going on, kind of a very strict morning routine. And there's my wife in the background. So in case you guys were wondering who that was. So I've got a series of questions I'm going to ask you, and this all revolves around success. And I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit, but I wanted to get started. It's kind of how and why you get started in the martial arts. Begin with
how and why I got started in the martial arts. Well, probably in the mid 60s. Right now I'm 58. So in mid 60s, I would have been 5 or 6 years old. I remember we were living in Montana, and I saw a silhouette of a guy doing a flying sidekick on a billboard or something. I don't even know. Maybe it was a school. I just remember seeing this thing, and I didn't know what it was, but I knew that that's what I wanted to do. And so I kind of started, finding out about it and Green Hornet and all that stuff. And then in 71, I started in junior high wrestling. I did that for a couple of years, and then I started finally. My older brother Tim had gone away to college in like 71 or 72, and I'd wanted to do martial arts before then, but my folks wouldn't have anything to do with it. And he came back from college after doing martial arts for a year, and said, "Hey, Mom and Dad, you got to let Dave do it." And it's kind of like I didn't find martial arts found me. I really don't know how to describe it, except I think you know what I'm talking about probably. But it's just something. So I started like I said, in September of 73, karate, and opened up my first school about 6 months out of high school in November 1978. And this is my 39th year running a martial arts school.
Wow, so, 39 years.
I know, it goes by really quick. Yeah, I still love it. So, how
many locations do you currently have, sir?
So I currently my company owns 8 locations, averaging about 300, almost 330 members per location. Obviously, some larger, some smaller. That's not including our fitness. If we add our fitness, it would jump it up a little bit, probably. So we've got about, I think, 3,100 members in Sacramento area, and then we've got 5 licensed schools, and then I coach about 160 schools as well.
That's incredible. So yes, that's one of the reasons I connected with you and have followed you for so many years, and because you've made a lot of mistakes and you know what to look out for, obviously.
I've successfully identified lots of things that don't work many times. Yes.
You and me both, sir. And that's the important thing. That's one of the things I always talk about is finding a mentor and learning from their mistakes, because obviously they say that experience is the best teacher, but I've found that other people's experiences are often just as valuable, if not more.
There you go. Yeah.
Somebody who's done it before and can save you a lot of time.
Yeah, sometimes though people they still need to experience it. It's like how many times have you told someone that offered some input that they kind of looked at you like, nah, I know I can do it, or I'm not going to listen, only from them to later on go, okay, like I've done that. And so look, to your point, there's a lot of people I could have listened to earlier on, but the difference is, man, experiential knowledge is the most powerful. Like I think of all the mistakes that I've made. And there's been a lot of them, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more. As long as, good judgment comes from bad judgment remembered. So the key thing is just if we can, when we do make a mistake, if we can be mindful of it so we're less likely to repeat it, then, there's nothing more valuable than experience. And so, like, it's going to happen. You're going to make mistakes. And like I said, if you learn from others, that's better. But it's still going to happen upon occasion.
Absolutely. Well, I think that I know how I am. I don't know how you are, sir, but I know how I am. I'm that kind of person that I'll hear the advice, and sometimes it's advice you've given me, and I think to myself, just like you said, oh, I think I'm a little different. I think I can make this work anyway. Only to find out later that, oh man, he was totally right. But if I hadn't done that on my own, the advice you gave me wouldn't have been as valuable. So it was actually more valuable after I made the mistake to realize, wow, I see his point now. Kind of like parenting.
And by the way, who is anybody else? You know, at the end of the day, you know, we've got to follow our guts. You know, who is anybody else? We can offer suggestions, but you know, I respect and admire someone that says, okay, you know, I'll take your advice, but I think I can do it anyway, because that kind of, you know, rugged optimism, so to speak, is you know, how people get to the next level. You know, Stephen Covey says every significant breakthrough is a break with, meaning sometimes you just got to go, okay, that's good advice, but you know, I believe I can do something different, and oftentimes people can be successful with it. So, you know, it's more art than science. You know what I'm saying? I don't know that there's any absolutes. There's, you know, whenever you hear the word always or never, you always have to, I just said it, you have to kind of wonder, okay, is that the case?
Absolutely. That's fantastic stuff, sir. And Stephen Covey, obviously, his books are invaluable and timeless. They so many things in there, what you just said apply to anything and everything. So I may be, you know, interviewing a martial arts master, instructor, and successful school owner, but from my experience, those successful principles that made you successful make people successful in virtually anything. So what do you think about that, sir?
I agree. I mean, I think it's really the definition of success for, you know, there's different people that have different definitions. I think what I look for in success is longevity, not somebody that was like had a good year. I mean, how many times in the martial arts industry have we seen someone that came on the scene that just kicked tail for 18 months or 2 years, and all of a sudden, boom, they're gone, right? And so when I look at, like, in our profession, I look at people that didn't have a good year, but it had a good decade or 2 decades, you know? Yes, and that's, to me, that longevity model is what I'm interested in. And you know, what I see is when that happens is people that basically did good business. Yes, they charged a fair price, but also, you know, they had extreme customer service in mind. You know what I mean? It's like they really were treating their community doing the right thing, and that always, in the long run, is good business.
Absolutely, and you and I both know, as anybody listening to this or watching this knows, it's so easy to find bad customer service just about any place. It's become the norm, I think, and so it's so easy to step out and just be a little bit better than you know what's being offered out there. And it's I think, in my opinion, being successful in this day and age is easier than ever just because of that. So
yeah, I think that the other thing is that because you know, there's maybe people listening to this that aren't from America, but in America, you know, we're born into such opportunity that, you know, we can be mediocre and still be successful. In most countries that can't happen, and that's both good and bad. You know, that the bad part is that sometimes people don't work as hard to get to the next level because they don't have to, you know, because they can get comfort. And, you know, get comfortable. The phrase goes, the enemy of excellence is good enough, right?
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's easy to be good enough. So it really takes that extra effort to kind of strive to get to the next level.
Yes, sir. And I think we as born in this country, when you're born into something, it's kind of like, I guess, if you're born into royalty and you've got all this lavishness around you, you don't appreciate it because you don't know any you know, how it could be on the other side.
Right.
And those who don't, and they come from nothing, they appreciate it, and they stay hungry and they work at it. And that's why we have so many people that come from outside of our country that come in and just blow it out of the water in whatever their industry is.
Yeah, because they see the opportunity. And that's also the thing about failure that we're talking about, is mistakes, is that it really makes you appreciate success more when you're there. You know, and by the way, success, you've never arrived, you're always arriving. Meaning, okay, you know, someone would be considered, in the martial arts industry, someone could be considered successful, but what would happen if they didn't show up to school for a week and treated all their students like crap? That success is going to be gone. So it's never ending, right? But I know for me is that, you know, struggles that I've had in the past really help me appreciate when things are going well, I can really be mindful and appreciative, more so than if I'd never had those struggles that set me back.
Absolutely, sir. That's fantastic. Let's shift gears a little bit. I know you have a program that's called ProMac, which is Professional Martial Arts College. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came up with the idea, what gave you the impetus to create that, and what it's all about?
So probably just a little history lesson here. Not that you want, but going back to 1981. So I was like 21 years old. I got approached by one of my students, and he was this guy that he had this Elvis side. He was an Elvis guy, kind of like a little older than me, you know. And I never knew what he did for a living, but he said, he had all this great video equipment. And he said, "Hey man, let's do a martial arts series on video." And this is when video first came out. Like, and to my knowledge, we were one of the first people to put together like a video program. We actually advertised on Black Belt magazine in the early '80s, and so I put together like a white through black belt curriculum. We weren't doing online, way before online. We weren't giving away rank or anything. It was just a Kempo curriculum. And I also did a self-defense tape and a black belt fighting techniques tape. Anyway, that was my first exposure to, kind of touching my foot in the water of kind of going beyond my boundary of my school. And so this went on for a few years, and the guy ended up, he had good video equipment. I found out later on that he would do some other maybe adult type video upon occasion. And he was like, "Oh, interesting, okay." But and so that he was a good guy, but it was time for me to move on. So we kind of severed our relationship. And then in the early '90s, my brother and I started documenting. My brother was like I had the school by myself for about 10 years, and things were booming. It was right after Karate Kid. I'd struggled for several years, and then all of a sudden there was this. It was an interesting time in the industry in the late '80s, early عنs. It was like you could not process the number of people that were interested. It's legitimate. I remember showing up. I was painting houses by day for a little while because my school because I didn't know what I was doing well enough to make it work full time. And I pull into my parking lot, and there would be a line of parents with their kids waiting to enroll them in the school. It was like, I remember doing a first lesson. I would do first lessons on Tuesday, Thursday. I remember one first lesson with 22 kids. It was just an average, it was just a crazy time. And so I share this with you because I realized, man, I need help. And I encouraged my older brother to be my partner. And you, of course, knew him well. And he was my partner for 20 years. But in the process, he's going, like, at the time I was teaching all the classes, and he was running kind of behind the scenes, doing all the program directing, etc. And he saw a need real quick, like, "Hey, man, we gotta figure out what it is we're doing here so we can replicate it." And so we started just kind of, coming up with systems and teaching tips. And then in 1993, we came up with a video series called "How to Teach Martial Arts to Kids," and we actually it was a little manual and a video, and we actually sold thousands of them. And then we had several in that line. And then in the late '90s, we did by the way, the whole time I was also, my brother and I were coaching other schools through EFC, Educational Funding Company, which was the organization in the '90s, or at least in the early '90s, and still has a presence. But they were way ahead of their time. This was way ahead of its time in a lot of ways, and really helped kind of set a lot of the groundwork. But then what happened was we did a series called Dynamic Drills and Skills. That would have been the late '90s, and then we put together what's called the MAX Manual, Martial Arts Career Training Manual. And a lot of people, you may have got that at one point. I mean, a lot of successful school owners. We probably sold 1,000 of those or something too. Those really laid out our leadership, our teaching strategies. It's really the foundation of what we still really teach, right? Although we've come a long ways. And then in the early 2000s, we decided we wanted to do a national presence. We were actually approached by a gentleman about doing a national presence, and we successfully identified a bunch of things that didn't work. We went from 4 locations to 20 in 18 months. And these were corporate. This isn't like a franchise. These were corporate-owned schools. And you can imagine the challenges that go into that. And I was in charge of developing staff. And by the way, we did a lot of things right, but we misjudged the amount of time it was going to take to get to profitability. And we struggled. It was hard to keep the doors open. And in the process, we put together the systems as to how to run a martial arts school. And as part of our method of expansion was going to be through acquisition. So let's imagine you have a school, and I go, "Hey, Master Theros, why don't I buy your school from you, and you join our team, and we'll open up a bunch of schools in your city that you'll be the district manager of." That was the theory. It sounded good on paper, but it didn't prove to be a real effective model. But in the process, here's what I was getting at. This is a long answer to a quick question. Is we developed kind of A to Z, how teaching how to be a better teacher, business practices, retention practices, that we were giving what was going to be all our potential school owners. And that was the impetus for PROMAC, which now we call Professional Martial Community. And originally when we did it, it was going to be like a 2-year program that you went through. And then you kind of graduate, so to speak. And we realized very quickly on that this kind of people need ongoing mentoring. And so that's kind of the start of it. We've now got several different products. Our two main things under the umbrella of Kovar Systems is Promac, which is kind of the business aspect. And then we recently launched about 6 months ago what's called the Satori Alliance, which is our instructors training program and association. It's kind of like what we want to do. It's non-style specific, how to make people really the best instructors possible. And we've got an online program that really rivals actually a university's online program. I'm real proud of it, and that's kind of so depending on what a school needs. Hopefully, we think a lot of our clients have both, but you really need the business systems, which a lot of people already have. But if they don't, then we've got this amazing program that really helps to develop and train instructors through the Satori Alliance. So that's where my focus is. Although I'm still heavily involved in our schools, I've got staff meetings starting in about an hour, and so I'm still involved in our schools. I'll be teaching tonight at one location, Wednesday at another location. So I'm still involved, but my main focus is on helping other schools grow.
Yeah, that's great. And speaking of Satori, that's the Kovar Satori Academy. I remember you coming up with the name and changing the name of the school. Where did you come up with Satori, and what does that mean?
Well, so we kind of what happened was when we decided to do a national expansion, we realized that at the time the name of our schools were Kovar's Family Martial Arts. And by the way, nothing wrong with having your name I don't think in the name of the schools. The reason why I did it originally I was Twin Dragons, but I'd moved around Twin Dragons Martial Arts. I'd moved around all over Sacramento to 2 or 3 different locations, and I'd moved to Carmichael, and there was rumors because since I moved that I'd closed, and I'd heard that a couple times. Oh, I thought you went out of business. So I realized, wait a minute, man, I've got to let people know that I'm still in town. So thus I used my name, right? And it just kind of stuck. But what happened when we were doing our expansion model, I realized that if we decided that if we were going to get other people to join us, having somebody else's name, like if you were already Smith's Karate Academy, you're not going to be Kovar's Smith's Karate Academy, but you might be Smith's Satori Academy. Satori is, of course, a Japanese word that the direct translation is a moment of enlightenment or a moment of deep understanding. It's that aha. If you have a challenge, you wake up in the morning, boom, with the answer, right? Or you finally figured out a math problem, right, that hit you, or whatever it might be. That's a Satori moment. Well, for us, we kind of adjusted its meaning a little bit. For us, Satori means in the moment at your best. And what that really refers to is that present state of consciousness when you have mental clarity, physical energy, and emotional calm. And you think about any time anybody is performed at their best. In Western sports, we call it being in the zone, right? But usually that's what there is. It's energy fueled through positive emotion. And so the key thing for us, and how does that do with martial arts, is that Satori, what could you do to maximize the amount of time you spend daily at your best, right? Well, it would involve, exercise, rest, nutrition, reading the right stuff, surrounding yourself with the right people. It's a whole lifestyle. So that's where the name Satori, that's where it kind of comes from.
Yeah, I love it. That's fantastic. And it seems like you really, have a perfect vision of what your organization is all about. And I think sometimes that, organizations get caught up in they don't know what they're all about, and they try to be, all things to all people. So what do you think about that in regards to somebody's success?
Well, I think that as we say, create a vision and visit it often. You have to have a real clear vision of where you want to be. And I think for me, there's 3 types of motivation. And, I know you and I have talked about this before, but there's desperation, inspiration, and purpose. And you think about it, every one of us, or most of us, at least people that have strived for something, put yourself out on a limb, have been motivated by desperation. Like how many times have I, in my business experience, been behind in the rinse? Fortunately, it's been a really long time since that's been the case. But many times, man, where I'm wondering how I'm going to pay the rent. And what do? You find a way. You're desperate. You do whatever you got to do. You go out there and you hustle for a few days. You do whatever you can to get that rent paid. So that's one type of motivation. But the issue with desperation is it's temporary. It's usually short-lived, right? The second type is inspiration. And that's, you go to a seminar, you watch a movie, you read a book, all of a sudden, man, you're inspired, right? Which is great. It's great to be inspired. But the bad news about inspiration is that generally tends to be temporary as well. So the third type of motivation is purpose. And that's when you're really clear about what your purpose is, right? And that's where I think that most people maybe don't spend the time to be really clear on their vision as to what they want their life to be about, or what they want their business to be about, or their school to be about. And when your purpose is real clear, that sustains you, and it kind of gets you through the lowest points. There still might be a little inspiration and desperation mixed in there, but when your purpose is clear, that helps to kind of guide your direction. And like for me, I'll give you my professional mission statement. It's to globally empower people of all ages to become more confident, healthy, happy, and contributing members of society through high-quality martial arts instruction, which consists of training in self-defense, health, fitness, and lifestyle. So that's my vision, right? So that helps me to kind of figure out everything I'm doing that day. Does that reinforce it or not? So
that's interesting because that's something that I've heard many, many, many times from people like Zig Ziglar and Anthony Robbins and other people like that about using affirmations. And there was a time where I did it myself, and I've gotten away from doing that. But recently, probably in the last month, I've been hearing more and more and more about affirmations. So what do you think about the affirmations and how it relates to somebody's success? How important is it?
I think that different stages in my life, they've been different. They've been important, and I don't know that saying, I like myself a million times. Maybe there's nothing wrong with it, right? But it's got to be backed with to me, it's got to be a feeling. So I think an affirmation spoken with feeling is very powerful. And who knows what it does on a metaphysical level? I don't know. But I do know that I have a series of questions that I ask myself every day. It takes about 5 minutes. And I base it actually on Tony Robbins' morning questions that I kind of modified and adjusted. And it's a combination of questions and affirmations. But I do know that what that does is it keeps the things that I'm working on at my forefront. You know what I'm saying? It keeps it, top of mind. It also makes me more, appreciative of, all the great things that otherwise I tend to take for granted, which is so common. Like, I bet you that I'm looking behind you right now, and there is a refrigerator, and I've actually know your wife. She's a great cook, and she makes great smoothies and juices. I've been at your house. I'm guessing if I open up that refrigerator, there is all kinds of wonderful, healthy food available to you, as there is in my refrigerator. Anytime. We tend to forget how cool that is, right? So every now and then, it's nice to remember that, hey, when you turn on the hot water this morning, hot water came out. And you don't appreciate that until your water heater goes out, right?
Yes, sir.
And so I try, and I like I said, I can always be better. There's plenty of room for improvement, but I try to, when I'm with my family and we're hanging out doing something, I try to take a second going, wow, this is it. These are the good old days right now. And I try to, when I come into my school every day, I actually learned this from Sensei Benny Gutierrez through Farbor Jacques in Woodland Hills. As Farbor was talking about how when Sensei Benny was going to start teaching you at school, Sensei Benny said, okay, I'll let you teach at the school, but you seem like you whine a lot about things, so this is what you got to do. Before you go into your school every morning, you got to put the key in the door, you got to take a breath, and you got to think about how lucky you are to be able to teach martial arts for a living. And then when you got to go into the school, you got to walk around and remember how you felt when you first got this place, how proud and excited you are to be able to do that. And if you can do that for a couple of weeks, then I'll teach at your school. Well, Farbor's told me this, and I go, wow, that's so powerful. So you've been to our school in California. I've got this beautiful school, and the headquarters school. We've got 8 schools, but our headquarters school is one of the buildings. And it's really been helpful. And so that helps me kind of start my day with an attitude of gratitude.
That's fantastic. And it's funny you should mention Farabor Zazak, because I looked for it a few years back, and I've lost it somewhere. I think I actually uploaded it to a digital file, and I might have it somewhere. But there was a little cassette tape that he used to sell that it was subliminal messaging for flexibility, because my flexibility is something that I've always struggled with, and I got this back in the early 2000s, maybe the late 90s, and that's what it was all about. It had this beautiful music playing in the background, ocean sounds, and it was his voice, saying, "I am flexible. I'm
right.
My muscles are warm," and things, and just I would put that on every afternoon and stretch out with that thing, and I tell you, it had an impact. So
cool. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's kind of like for those affirmations.
Yeah, and I think for me, I'm a big fan of ritual and routine and habits. Everybody talks about it, but it's so true, man. The quality of your life is in direct relationship with the quality of the habits and routines and rituals that you have in place. And so, it's real easy to deviate. There's a great quote that we teach our students: good habits are hard to make but easy to live with. Bad habits are easy to make but hard to live with, right? And there's so much truth to that. And, a lot of us work really hard to establish a good habit, like what you're saying, stretching in the afternoon, and then it's very easy, to get away from those. So that's what I try to do on a regular basis, is I try to kind of sit down and kind of analyze my day from dawn to dusk. All right, what habits are serving me? Which ones do I need to, which ones have I swayed from? What things do I need to adjust? Because the bottom line is that really a successful lifetime is made up of successful days, right? And so you just got to kind of, how's the quote go? Take care of the days and the years take care of themselves. Just kind of what can you do today to eat right, exercise, build your relationships, because that's really. I was watching Bear Grylls. My son and I are watching a Bear Grylls show, and he's
his show.
Yeah, and he was interviewing some high level like professionals, and one of the people he was they were talking about something, and Bear Grylls said something. He goes, the only true wealth is relationships. And I love that line. So what can you do daily to make sure that you cultivate your relationships, and that to me, it's important to have that, the goal, man. What's that end game, if there's ever an end game? But, some BHAG, big, hairy, audacious goal. There's nothing wrong with that, man. Like, I've got plenty. I got a list. I could show you all my stuff around here with my goals and but it's kind of like if you have I'm a vegetable gardener. When I have some years I've had crazy good gardens. This year I have 12 tomato plants, right? That's it, because I'm traveling a lot. I haven't had the time to put into it. But, if I plant if I sprout my tomato from seeds, and it's a whole process to it. And if I go out and after I plant them in the ground and I keep on pulling them up to see how the roots are doing and putting it back in, it's not good for the growth of the tomato. What do I got to do? I gotta plant it in healthy soil. I got to make sure it has sun, and I got to make sure I water it on a regular basis. Then I got to let nature take care of itself. Well, and then, that's kind of how I look at goals. It's important to have them, you know what I'm saying, and clear, but then, man, you just kind of every day, you maximize that day. As long as you're doing things that are moving in that direction, then it's kind of like, you want to go to the North Pole. You don't always know the exact street, but if you keep on walking north, you're eventually going to get there. You know what I'm saying? So you always make sure that you keep guiding that direction, and so that's what I try to do. Is I try to, like I said, I'm not perfect, a lot of room for improvement, but I try to make sure that I analyze my daily routines. And with guys like you and I that teach martial arts professionally, the line between our professional goals and our personal goals and our health goals, it's very blurred. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm going to work out with my team at staff meeting for the first hour, right? And we're going to be in our uniforms. We're going to be sweating hard today, and that's how we always start our staff training. Is that professional, or is that personal, or is that health? It's all of them, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like the line is very blurred for me. They all kind of are interrelated, and it's kind of a lifestyle. And of course, that's why we're blessed to do what we do.
Absolutely. Okay, let's talk a little bit about a couple of things. I want to blend them together here. I know you have a staff meeting to get to, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but you do seminars all over the world. So tell us a little bit about some of the places that you've done seminars and how you got to the point where you've been gotten in such demand to be able to have people call you into these places.
Well, it's a happy problem, really. I'm trying to actually cut back a little bit on my travel. Last year I was gone about 100 days, which is plenty. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And so I kind of do three types of seminars. First off, I do martial arts seminars. Usually I'll go to somebody's school, as I've been in your school, and work with students. and I do a lot of along the lines. I'll often work with I'll do a retention class for junior students with the whole intention of getting them. I hope they enjoy spending time with me. I hope the class is fun. But what I really want them to do this class is to be recommitted to martial arts at the school they're training at. And I'll do that with adults, and I'll usually do an instructor program like for leadership or SWAT or TNT or Storm, whatever the school might call it. And then so that's one thing. And then I do a lot of instructor boot camps where I'll go into a city and we'll have instructors from around the region will come and we'll do a half-day intensive on how they can be a better teacher. And then I'll also do a lot of
how great those are. And we've had you in 3 times now. And every time it might be the same information, but every time you cover it slightly differently. And it's like, like Zig Ziglar says, taking a bath, or it's like motivation and it needs to be redone,
Yes,
so getting that information again, it's just very, very powerful.
Yeah, well, thank you. And so I'll do those, and I also will do a business event, a business boot camp, and that doesn't include our ProMac events, which I do 8 of those a year, which are a weekend. And so I've had the privilege of being all over the United States a bunch of times, but also to the UK, Spain, Germany, Australia, Brazil, Nepal, even doing seminars. So it's been pretty cool. And this year I've been to the UK and Australia, and I will also I'm going to be in Hawaii in a couple of weeks. Darn it, with Master Sam Bishaw, who's got a school in Honolulu. You might remember him from the UWP days.
Absolutely.
And then later on this fall, I'll be going out to Majorca, which is in the Mediterranean. It's an island owned by, it's a Spanish island in the Mediterranean. It's beautiful. I was out there a few years ago. And I'm actually working with a gentleman by the name of Stefan Billen who works, who coaches a bunch of schools in Germany, and I've actually been out there a couple times to work with him. So yeah, that's great. I mean, I've been blessed to be able to do that, and I don't really solicit a lot. It's kind of like you kind of end up working into a circuit, you know what I mean? Where and it's great. It's going to give me a chance to really see the world, and I've been able to bring my family members with me, my son, my daughter, my wife on various trips, and then do what I love to do, and that is talk about martial arts and teach martial arts.
Now, would you have ever imagined having that kind of experience when you first stepped into the martial arts school the first time?
No, absolutely not. It's kind of like you go as far as the eye can see. When you get there, hopefully you see a little further. It's like it's pretty cool. Like I said, honestly, it's also hard work. Traveling and doing seminars is hard work.
Yes.
But it's totally. I'm not complaining. I'm just but it's totally rewarding, and it also has allowed me to. I've been, with the exception of maybe Eric Paulson and Bill Wallace, I've probably been in more schools than anybody on the planet in the last 5 years. Yeah, literally hundreds and hundreds of martial arts schools.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, well, it's helped me really get a pulse on what's going on, And by the way, most of those schools I go to are successful, or they wouldn't have me there, right? And so it's interesting that how there's so many commonalities, but there's still a lot of differences, in how people do business, But there's a lot of things that I see that are universal in successful schools, and so I'm happy. It's a great time to be in the martial arts industry. Any business is hard. This is not easy by any stretch, but it's still a great time to be in the business.
Now, you've written several books, and I've got several of your books. They're wonderful. How did you get the idea to come up with? Absolutely. How did you come up with the idea for the instructor? Excuse me, the Parents is it Dad's Toolbox? I can't. The word
Dad's Toolbox for Better Parenting. I'm probably gonna repackage it and be the Parents Toolbox, actually, because in hindsight, people are thinking it was only for dads, and that was not my intent. And my intent was from my perspective. And that book was like 25 years in the making, and it was really, I don't know. I was teaching martial arts long before I had kids, right? And I was giving advice all the time. Oh, yeah, parents would come up and say, "Oh, what do I do?" Oh, I was spewing out advice. Then I had kids of my own. I go, "Wow, this is really different. Man, this is harder than I think." But then the whole time, what I always did, since I've been in business, is I've always kind of looked out for parents who seem to have it together, whose kids seem to have it together. And I've always kind of done interviews with them, right? To the point of even taking notes of stuff that I heard, kind of knowing, okay, if I'm ever a parent, or now that I'm kind of a small child, what are you doing, right? And so it's really, that was the impetus of that book. And I'm real proud of it. Obviously, you can get it on Amazon, and it's got a bunch of tips targeted towards what you can do, everyday stuff that you can do to become a better parent. And I've got another one called Brief Moments of Clarity. And it kind of, the title refers to, people ask me, what does that title mean? Well, every now and then I get a real clear idea of what I think what's going on. Most of the time I'm not there, but every now and then you have some clarity. And it's kind of like my chicken soup for the soul, so to speak. It's, stories about, things that I've learned growing up. And then the third book is a little bit more textbook style, and that's the Martial Arts Instructor's Toolbox, and that's kind of our teaching tips. That's what I use actually when I go do instructor colleges. So I've got a couple more, that may be somewhere down the line, but for right now, I don't have any projects exactly, that I'm working hard on right now when it comes to books.
That's wonderful, though, just to know that you've written those books and they're very impactful, and how I've seen how they've kind of morphed and been part of the other things that you're working on. It's kind of like, seeing something on video and then hearing it on audio, and
right.
The same genesis. So that's fantastic. So being I know this is kind of going to be a biased answer from you, but for somebody that's watching this that's not involved in martial arts, what are your thoughts about what martial arts can do for kids and adults?
Gee, absolutely nothing. Just kidding, of course. So, I'm a big fan, as you are. I think martial arts has the answer to almost every challenge. So you think of a kid, you think of any child growing up in any Western industrialized world, or for that matter, it doesn't even have to be, it could probably anywhere. What kind of challenges? But let me just speak from my experience, from what I see, right? What are challenges that facing kids? If I asked a crowd, like I've done a dozen times, hundreds of times, because it's part of my instructor's college, I hear obesity. Do we address that? Yes, we do. If not directly, at least indirectly. We don't necessarily, although in our schools we have a healthy eating challenge we do 3 times a year. It's real basic stuff. But even if we didn't do that, just the nature of martial arts makes people be more health conscious. You look at somebody, a kid that spends too much time on a computer. They may not be obese, but man, they're out of shape. Their body's not developing right. So we had helped that body. That martial arts is the ultimate athletic endeavor. It's right side, left side, upper body, lower body, rotational movement, lateral movement, circular movement, strength, flexibility, endurance. The list goes on and on. And so, you want to have your child develop their body correctly for some other athletic endeavor. Martial arts can do it. Obviously, bullying. Do we address that? Heck yeah. Not just because we're teaching the kid how to palm strike the bad guy in the nose, but because we're teaching kids how to project confidence and convey confidence, so they're less likely to be confronted in the first place. There's a great quote that goes like this: the average bad guy does not have an alternative plan, they have an alternative victim. And so the fact that we teach our students to project confidence, regardless of the age, 6 or 26 or 46 or 66, projecting confidence makes you less likely to be confronted. Focus. Do we address that? Heck yeah. And so the list goes on and on. But the same for adults. Violence, self-defense, stress. What's better stress relief than a martial arts class? So yeah, I'm a bit biased, but I think everybody should do martial arts.
That makes 2 of us, sir. I figured you might say something along those lines. So a couple of final questions, and I'll let you get back to your day. Again, we're talking to a martial arts instructor here, martial arts businessman, but the same principles apply in any business, any activity, any endeavor, whether it be schooling or any kind of career or relationships. What would maybe be the 1 or 2 big pitfalls that you would counsel somebody to avoid if they could?
So whatever it is that pursue, I think it's really it's a great question. I would start out by making sure that, first off, dream big. Right? Dream big, certainly. But then make sure that the steps that you take are gradual. And what I mean by that is that most people, they fail because of they don't ever develop their self-discipline to the level they can back up their dreams. And what I mean by that is that what gets you to the next level is establishing a series of routines and habits that are powerful, right? And that are in line with your long-term goals. And let's say, for example, I haven't worked out in years, and I decide, all right, man, it's time for me to get in shape. I'm going to go to the gym every morning, Monday through Friday at 5 a.m., and I'm going to lift weights for an hour. Well, guess what? No, you're not. What's going to happen? That's for most people. Every now and then somebody might be successful with that. But if I haven't worked out for years and, I don't do, what's going to happen is I'll make it for the first 2 or 3 days, maybe the first week, and then, my willpower is only going to go so long, and then I'm going to fall back into my old habits. And we see this all the time, right? That's why, people will say diets don't work, etc. Well, but if I was to say, all right, this is my long-term goal, I want to be in the best health and condition. By the way, there's a difference between health and fitness. I want to be healthy and fit, right? And that's my long-term goal. And eventually, I'd like to be able to be at the gym for an hour a day. I'd like to work out 5 or 6 hours a week total. But I know that's a lot. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get up 5 minutes early, and I'm going to walk around the block once, and I'm going to commit to doing that for a week. And then at the end of the week, all right, I did that. I'm going to get up 15 minutes early. I'm going to walk around the block 3 times. I'm going to do 10 push-ups, and I'm going to commit to doing that for a week. And see, now these are realistic goals, so you can check off your success box, right? And all of a sudden, 6 months later, guess what? You got this whole new shape of series of habits. And this is where I think most people, they have these grandiose goals, but they don't do the daily follow through, or they set themselves up for failure by being too grandiose with their daily goals. So the key thing is to start small, build small, successful habits. And once you've got a series of habits, then you add the next level, the next level, the next level. And I think that's where most people go wrong is they don't allow themselves enough time to develop that level of discipline to get all the things done. Because you can't focus on 20 new habits. In my opinion, it's too many for most people. I can focus on one new habit. And once I've got that, then I add another. And then I add another. Next thing you know, I've made great gains. Wow,
that's awesome. I tell you what, for those listening and watching, this guy, Master Kovar here, I've seen him personally, and I feel like a schmo when I'm around you, because I'm telling him sometimes this is a good thing, because we'll be at a seminar together, and everybody else is going out for lunch. Everybody else is going back to their room to take a break, and you're walking stairs. You're walking flights of steps while everybody else is resting. And you're kind of like they talked about Bruce Lee was like always training. And when he was sitting still, he was squeezing a ball or whatever, and he was always exercising. That's how I see you. And it's I know you didn't start out that way, but that's kind of like how you got there, I think, is by building on those things, one little thing per week like that, and committing to it and making a habit out of it. So I commend you, and I'm telling you, you've set the bar very, very high.
Thank you.
Watching you do those one-legged squats at, not at 18 years old, it just like blew my mind, because I've never been able to do pistol squats, and sit there to watch you stand up and knock out 10 or 20 of those things, when you're past, 40 years old. It's amazing to see that. So just wanted to say how inspirational that has been to me and to so many other people, I'm sure.
Well, thank you, sir. I can always do better, but I appreciate, one of the things that I struggle with is that, I don't believe as much in, we definitely get older, but a lot of times people use that as a crutch to doing less. What I do am aware of is time on the mat. The bottom line, you spend enough time training, you're going to get a bump and bruise every now and then. So you what I try to do is not compare myself to my 25-year-old self as much as I try to focus on what I still can do. Because, the body does change and training does evolve. That's nature, and so I've adjusted my training quite a bit. It's all about, for me, feeling good. I want to wake up feeling good. I want to be pain-free. I want to still be able to move, etc. So I try to keep that in mind in everything that I do.
Wonderful. Okay, last question for you. What are you most excited about these days? What gets you up in the morning and gets you excited? What are your plans for the near future?
Yeah, really, for me, I'm super excited about, obviously proud of my family and kids. That's always top of the list, right? For me, it's our Satori Alliance. We really got a product, a program that's really, sincerely, it's kind of like my experience doing instructor colleges for the last 20, 25 years has helped to evolve into a program that's going to help school owners and instructors all over the world really become top-notch. And why is this important? Because, first off, it's the right thing to do. We should strive to be the best instructor we can be. But also because good for business. You want to have good retention. It's all about that instructor-student relationship. So that's really, right now I got a lot of exciting business things that we're working on. But that's probably like the thing that for me is what I'm most excited about.
Wonderful. Well, if somebody wanted to get in touch with you as a school owner or somebody interested in some of the services and products that you offer, where would they reach you?
Yeah, you could go to kovarsystems.com, KOVARSYSTEMS, or you could reach out to me personally. My email address is dave.kovar@kovars.com, and I'd be happy to point you in the right direction.
Okay, well, I'll tell you, so this has been a fantastic and enlightening interview. I greatly appreciate you taking the time with us and our listeners. and I wish you all the best. And I look forward to seeing you next month in Vegas.
All right, I'll be there.
I'll be at your Universal Defense.
Very cool.
What is it called? UDD. What is that called again?
University of Diverse Defense. It's a program put on by Tom Pateri, a really amazing guy. He asked me to be one of his instructors, so I'm doing unarmed combat. So it's something that obviously I love doing. I love teaching, so I'm excited to be a part of that. And that's actually I think on the 5th, and then on the 6th I'm doing an instructors college. And so that's also an event before the official Vegas. So I'll be seeing you a lot in next month.
Looking forward to it, sir. Again, thank you so much.
Take care, man.
You too.
Pleasure. Bye-bye.